Coach Preston Spradlin, welcome back to Sports Spectrum. It's good to see you, sir.
Great to see you. Thanks so much for having me on. Got different colors on this time, and so excited to talk about what God's been doing in my life, and certainly the next chapter of where I'm at right now is an exciting thing to share. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Last time we had you on, it was right after your first NCAA tournament bid when you were at Morehead State. And here you are now at James Madison wearing that purple. And I think that's a great place to start. Tell us about the new role, how you're settling in. The season's not too far away here as people start to gear up for college basketball. But tell us about this role and maybe even share with us why you knew that God was steering you here, and saying yes to come to James Madison.
Yeah, we had been at Morehead State for 10 years, my family and I, and just so blessed to be there and enjoy our quality of life and where we were able to get our program to and the impact we were able to have and the success and everything. And so, of course, that opens up, new opportunities. And so as that was happening, we wanted to be very selective. And when I say we, I mean myself, my wife, my family, and my staff and their families as well, because we very much loved where we were, and we wanted to be. If we were going to make a move, we wanted to make a lot of sense, and we wanted to check a lot of boxes, not just from a professional standpoint, but from a personal standpoint and a quality of life, and continuing to raise our family, and ultimately to be able to have a great impact. And so that's what led us here to James Madison. And so it was a very interesting coaching carousel this off season, and
Yeah.
very blessed to have a few opportunities, but this was the one that God chose for us to come and to uproot our lives. First time, Jason, for my family and I living outside of the state of Kentucky.
Mhm.
First time for me ever wearing anything other than blue. Everywhere that I've been from as a middle school player through college, and obviously my time at Kentucky and Morehead, lots of blue. So this purple is new to me, but it's a great challenge, and it's a lot of fun being here.
Well, it looks good on you, coach. I mean, I'm sure you're getting used to it now, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, describe, you mentioned this uprooting or this decision. It's not just a Preston Spradlin decision. It's your wife, your kids, your staff, your players on both sides. Can you just kind of describe a little bit what that's like for you, knowing you have to make that difficult walk into probably an office or conference room to share the news that you're taking this job, and then you're coming to a new place, but you also got your wife and discussing that with her. You have your staff that you bring with you, the staff that may stay, the staff that may go elsewhere. It's just there's a lot. I think people forget this isn't just you saying, okay, hey, yes, let's do this, and I got a new job. There's a lot that goes into this.
There's a lot of different factors, a lot of people, and so I think finding the right balance, right? Because it's something that you want to discuss, you want to have people involved, but at the same time, you certainly don't want it to be a distraction, especially as a season is going on. And we really take the responsibility to serve our players and provide them the best experience they can have and the best season that we can have. Unfortunately, with the coaching carousel nowadays, jobs they change over very quickly, and that process of hiring a coach is a lot faster and oftentimes a lot sooner nowadays than it otherwise used to be. And so, when I say finding the right balance, right, my staff, we I sat down with probably 2 weeks left to go in the season, as there were some jobs beginning to open and rumors swirling, and obviously we were having success, and so it was nice to have our name out there as one of the staffs that would be pursued. But at the same time, that was a huge distraction away from what we really needed to be focused on, and that was our players and our team and our season. And so about 2 weeks to go in the season, I sat my staff down and I said, "Hey, listen, I don't want to have any, coaching jobs conversations. None with me." I said, "I have an agent. I have my family. We'll have those discussions." I said, "Just so you guys know that, should the right opportunity come about, I'm going to take into consideration all of you guys and your families when it comes to making a decision, and everybody's going. Don't worry, right? Everybody's going to make more money and have a better opportunity, but I'm going to carry all of that in my consideration, but it's nothing that we need to talk about right now." Okay, so rest easy knowing that if we make a move, you're all going, we're all going to be better off for it. And I'm going to consider each and every one of your personal lives with it, but let's not allow that to be a distraction. The flip side of that is my wife and I, having a lot of discussion about different jobs and things like that coming about and being really in depth with that. And then finding the balance of how much do you talk to your kids about it, right? My son is 12, our daughter is 6. And so, they're at that age where, they hear rumblings and things like that. And we don't want them to be blindsided. We want them to feel like they have the inside track and they know what's going on. And so we were selective as to how much we shared with them, but we were, very intentional about sharing some stuff with them, right? Because we did want them to know, like, hey, this is a possibility that we may be pursuing a different opportunity, but these are going to be the things that we're looking for as we do that. And so finding the balance, right? It's who you talk to, how much you talk to about it, but not allowing it to be a distraction and certainly taken away from, where we're at right now.
Yeah, because you still had games to play. I'm always fascinated because you still have to get a team ready. And obviously, that team at Morehead State went to the tournament again 2 times in the past few years. And so lots of success, but you still have to be a coach. And I got to imagine just when all you got to do is open social media and, click on something and boom, there's probably 3 or 4 different things happening that are easily a distraction, like you say. So, what was that like as a coach to get your players rallied around and get everybody on the same page to just make as good a run at this as you can? Because this doesn't just happen in basketball or college basketball. This is
Right.
pros, football, baseball, like all the rumors, everything. This cycle that we live in. How are you able to just say, let's just focus on basketball? Do you just do it and kind of get it set in the minds of the players? Like, we're trying to win something here, and let's just do this for as long as God allows us to do it?
That's a great question. I wish I could tell you that it was easy. I wish I could tell you that it didn't come without failure early on with that, but it brings a great story. So I have to rewind to the previous March
Mm.
at Morehead State. So the 2023 season, we'd won a regular season title, and then we get upset in the first round of the OVC tournament. We have an early exit, and then we, at that point in time, had the opportunity to still play in the NIT as the regular season champions before they changed that rule. That's another subject there, but we had another opportunity there, and so while we were preparing for the NIT in 2023, coaching carousel started to turn. People started to call. There was a lot of conversations and things like that. And so I was involved in some different jobs and some that I'd had my eye on for a long time. And we go to play at Clemson in the first round of the NIT, and we play a great game. We get down big, we fight back, and our guys just play so free and loose and confident. And it was really, and ultimately, we end up winning the game. And I'll never forget our best player at the time, Mark Freeman. He goes to the line. We're up 2. He sinks 2 free throws to put us up 4 to kind of seal the game. And the moment the ball goes to the net, all I could really think about in that moment for a quick second was, wow, I just became the head coach at this other place that I'd been talking to. And I quickly snapped myself out of that moment and tried to get back to enjoying, the biggest win of my career and this team and this journey that we'd been on. And but the reality is, I didn't get that job, and I'll never get that moment back, Jason. I'll never get it back.
Right.
And so it was really painful, to be honest with you, because the biggest win of my career in this unbelievable season that we had experienced, and there's so many things that go into that great season and the people. But my mind was elsewhere, right? So the thing that I had been preaching to my team, every coach says, be where your feet are and things like that, is hard to do, right? Because we're human beings. And so, worrying or looking forward to the next thing stole my joy for a great moment that I'd been, working for and praying for a long time. The prayer that had been answered, I didn't receive it.
Hmm.
And so you fast forward, I'm back at Morehead State, which is great, and had so many answered prayers and blessings with new players and returning players to come in for the season that you're referring to. And before we began the season, I looked at our roster, and we had 8 seniors / graduate guys where this was going to be their final year. And I just saw so much stress and so much worry in their faces and in their interactions and things throughout the summer and the preseason. And so I told my wife, I said, we're going to have these guys over for dinner, just the seniors. I'm going to teach them, how to make a steak. I'm going to teach them something, and we're going to have a very real conversation, just me and them. And I shared that story with them. And some of those guys were on that team the year before, and they're like, "Wow, coach, it's a big moment, and you're worried about getting this other job." And I said, "Yeah, I was, and I'm ashamed to tell you that, but it's very real. And I share that with you because I don't want any of you to go through that. I
Hmm.
went through that, and so I don't want to ever experience that again. I don't want you to experience it, and I want you to know as your coach that it's normal, it's human, but it's not fun. So learn from my mistake, and let's all stay together and live in this moment." And I think that served us well throughout the season, through the ups, the downs, and certainly the distractions as we were getting into March and preparing for the NCAA tournament, coaching carousel, and all those other things. So that's a long way to tell you, not perfect, but it was a long process, and took some failure to get to a point where we handled that time and that responsibility better.
What a great story. First of all, that wasn't long at all. That was perfectly well said because I think it shows some vulnerability and it shows real life. Um, I don't know, just admitting that, hey, there are things that happen that people think, oh, when you go out in front of a camera, in front of a microphone or to the media, they're like, nope, we're focused on the task at hand. You can say that, but real life is real life. And when you win against Clemson, there's that moment. I love that you shared that because I think coaches, I don't know if the coaches that you've worked with, if that's something that's you know taught just by living and kind of experiencing yourself, or if that's something that other coaches have showed you or modeled for you. But I think that when you can be transparent and vulnerable with your players, I'm guessing, you tell me, that's when you can get a lot out of them, not just on the court, but just as people, because you want to mold people. You want to win games too, but you want to mold some of these people and get them ready for the next stage of life too, right?
No question. I mean, we're not coaching robots here, right? These aren't computers. They're going to make tons of mistakes. And so, um, I try to be as authentic as I can. I had a chance to work for the great John Calipari, Hall of Famer. He's unbelievable, and so many wonderful lessons that I learned from him. But probably the most important one, and he shared this with me, is, "Hey, you're not me. Okay, you have to be you." And I think when you try to be something you're not, players see through that, and you really don't get the best out of them, and you don't get the best version of yourself. And so I do think the vulnerability piece is really important because that's the game of basketball. Okay, Jason, I tell everybody, I tell recruits this, and I really truly believe it, that basketball is the greatest teacher of life. It
Yeah.
really is. It's what the game was created for because it is such a chemistry driven game, and it's such a response and reaction game, right? You're going to miss shots, you're going to turn the ball over, you're going to make mistakes, but you're defined by how well you respond to it and how well your relationships come out on the court, right? And so that's life, right? You're going to be defined by your relationships that you have and how you respond to the things that happen in your life. So I call it the gift of the game.
Mm.
Okay. If you can really understand that as you're playing and coaching, then you can receive the real gift of the game. The real gift of the game isn't, championship rings and banners and new jobs and accolades. It's learning about life. It's learning how to be a great person in our, for us, being a great man. That's what we look for. Being a great father and a great husband is what we're trying to create through coaching these guys. And I think we have to model that ourselves, right? There are a lot of times where I will tell the guys, like, I did a bad job. I did a poor job. Okay. And sometimes that's losing my cool, right? Falling below my own standards that I set for myself and for our team. And it's important that they see that human side. They see that I can make mistakes, but it's more important that they can see that I can own up to them and have that vulnerability. And so it's an important part of receiving the gift of the game and leading our team because it's important to us.
Yeah, and I know what's also important to you is your faith. So let's kind of, you alluded to it in the very part of the introduction of this interview, was just how the Lord's been working in your life. So why don't you share a little bit about what God's been doing and teaching you and showing you?
Yeah, I'll fast forward, or excuse me, rewind back two more seasons. You mentioned the last time that we spoke on here, we had just went to the NCAA tournament for the first time, and you go into that next year, we had another phenomenal season, which was just such a blessing with so many good players and able to retain those guys. And going into that postseason, this would have been 2022. We had a really talented team, and I didn't always enjoy coaching that group quite as much as I should have. And there's some, there's issues on my part, issues on their part, and I think I was really soul searching that season. And so we went into the postseason, and I just said, and I spent a lot of time talking to my character coach, talking to other folks at Nations of Coaches. If you don't know what that is, I'd love to share some more information about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We'll talk about
It's
them in a second for sure. Yeah.
yeah, so impactful, and those guys really, counseling me throughout the year. But we went into that postseason, that OBC tournament, and I was more at peace than I'd ever been. And it's probably a year that we should have been packed with pressure because we had just won the OBC tournament the year before. And so we have a great run, and we lose in the championship game by a basket to a really good Murray State team, and our season's over. And I remember being more at peace that year than I ever was, because I'd kind of been able to shift my mind a little bit to, hey, I haven't been the best version of myself this year. These guys haven't been either. But at the end of the day, we've got to make the most of it. And so I started to reflect on that season, and I had a lot of regret at the way I coached that team, because I became very transactional during that year because of what success the season before had done to me.
Mm.
So I go into that off season, and the infamous transfer portal happens, and we lose some really good players, which is what happens now.
Yeah.
And I remember being a little crushed, right? And I was at a crossroads where I just met with two phenomenal players who I thought were coming back, and then they're leaving all of a sudden, right? And I remember taking a drive in my car or my truck and driving around and listening to some music, and I just had to get my mind right. And I stopped and I prayed, and I thought, this is where I'm going to really change things. Because to that point, and this is a very shallow thing that I'd always prayed for, hey, bring us these players, bring us these guys that can help us win. And if we're recruiting a certain guy, that's who we want. I would waste my prayer life on that, to be honest with you. So at that point, I changed, and I said, you know what, God, give us the guys. I pray that the ones who are leaving, that the time that we've had with them has been enough to prepare them for what they have next. And I pray that you'll deliver us with the players that need us in their life, me and the staff and our families, our wives. That's what I'm prayed for every single day.
Hmm.
And as we went through that spring and signed 7 players, God delivered like you would not believe. And so that's been more of my focus since that moment is, I'm going to really enjoy coaching these guys. I'm going to pour everything I have into them and their experience. And if I've got 1 year with them, if I've got 4 years with them, I'm going to try to have a huge impact. And so it took some real adversity to get me to that point. But that's what God's been doing in my life. And fast forward to coming here to James Madison, you walk in the locker room and you got 2 returning scholarship players. That's what we had.
Wow.
And so we had to get 11 guys here in the spring. And I remember just meeting so many people here at JMU. It's unbelievable the support we have. And everywhere you go, people want to talk to you. And everybody's kind of looking at me like, why aren't you worried? Why aren't you like freaking out right now? Why is your hair not completely gray yet? And I had a piece about like, God brought us here for a reason. He's going to give us the guys that we need.
Hmm.
Is that going to equate to 20 wins and a championship? I don't know. It's not going to be, necessarily up to me. But we're going to get the guys we're supposed to have, right? And if we do right by them, then success will come. So that's kind of what God's been doing in my life. Why He brought me here to JMU, and kind of where we're at right now.
That's awesome. I do want to talk about Nations of Coaches in a second, but what I just want to respond to kind of what you shared. There's a couple of things. I sense the word surrender a little bit in there in what you were doing, surrendering, truly surrendering everything, every aspect, and selflessness and understanding, that even you can turn your prayers without even realizing it, because I do this too, into a little bit of, like you say, transactional or even selfishness, and saying, can you do this for me? more than what if he doesn't do that specific thing, but can he still be glorified? And that's part of surrender. I wonder if that's been something you've kind of noticed in this new aspect of coaching the last year or two. It just what that word surrender might mean to you.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that are, I think that's been a big transition for a lot of coaches, right? Is we do not have as much control as we used to, right? With the portal and NIL and all these things that the profession has really changed, right? And
Yes.
so I don't think that our mission has to. I really don't, right? I think we can still be very transformational, even though the business side of it has become significantly more transactional. Okay. And so with that, you don't have quite as much control over what happens to you. But if you do surrender, like you said, right, and you really invest in your faith, then you do have significantly more control on how you respond to it. And so that's kind of been our approach to navigating what's changing and making sure that, we're keeping our moral compass and making sure that, we're staying very purpose driven in what we do. And again, I keep saying, we and us, I'm referring to my staff and
Yeah.
our families because, we're all very much in on this together and the impact that we want to have.
Preston Spradlin's with us here on Sports Spectrum with James Madison. Yeah, it was March 29th when you took the job with JMU. And there's just, I mean, it probably feels like yesterday and it feels like 5 years ago when probably all that's transpired since as you lead up to this upcoming season. But I was out at the Final Four in Phoenix this year, just a couple days before the games with nations of coaches, hanging out with them, seeing the great work that they do. Tommy Kyle and Pete Weary and just so many others that are amazing, amazing men of God. And you mentioned character coaches and nations of coaches. And I just saw how connected they were with so many in the basketball world. They even had a panel that was really well done talking about these things that you and I are talking about, a couple coaches up on the panel. What is it that's been so great for you to be involved with nations of coaches and the work that they get to do?
A number of things. Number one, I've got to give a shout out to our former character coach at Morehead State, Rich Duffield, who actually won National Character Coach of the Year a few years ago because of his work and his impact that he does with us. And um, he's still at Morehead State. He and his wife, Becky, they both serve with nations of coaches and athletes in action on campus,
Hmm.
working with all different student athletes. But the impact that Rich had for us it was immense. It really truly was. And so he was around a ton, like every day. He would be with us, and so I would give Rich the authority, I guess you could say, to hey, if you want to meet with a player, and I would tell the players this, if Rich reaches out to you and says, hey, let's find time to go to lunch or get together in the next week, you're responsible for finding that time to go with him. And Rich he would have different conversations with guys, and I would make sure that everyone knew, hey, that's between the two of you. It doesn't need to get to me what you guys talk about, because I think the having enough self awareness to know, hey, I'm the coach, and although I can say, hey, I've got an open door policy, and I want to be in your life, and I want to help you with these things, I'm still the guy that decides your playing time, right, and your role, and that can be difficult. So you need to have someone else who doesn't care about that, and you need to have the door open for them to be able to pour into your life and to hear you out. And so he's done a great job of that. And we would have what we call power hours, which would be I wish I could say they were weekly. At certain points in the year, in the summer, they would be. As the season would go on, they would be bi-weekly or maybe every 3 weeks, oftentimes on the road. And so what those would be is a discussion. Rich would facilitate a discussion for our team. And so he and I would be very intentional about what that message would be. And so, he and I would talk and say, hey, this is kind of what I think about the team right now. I think, we could probably use a lesson in humility, right? Or being selfless or, whatever that character quality may be. And then he would do an unbelievable job of running with that concept, and he would find materials, he would find quotes, videos, illustrations, Bible verses, whatever it may be, to facilitate a discussion. And he was very good at getting our team to talk. And so that was a big reason for our success, and ultimately our impact with our guys and their growth. And we've been missing that, to be honest, since I've been here at James Madison, because we don't have that person in that role. And so we're working on getting that right now. But I will say this huge challenge to myself and to our staff coming from Rich was once we got here, he said, "Hey, listen, you guys have been, been a part of my power hours for, 7 years now. You know, all the discussions and things." He said, "Why don't you just do them?" And I'm like, whoa, me lead the guys in a discussion of that's not basketball, or
Yeah.
and he said, yeah, he said, you should be able to do it by now. And so what we did, and it was his idea, we divided the staff up. I did the first one, Coach Lombardi did the second one, Coach Burke did the third one, and Coach Baker did the fourth. And we're going to continue that into the fall.
Hmm.
And very similar to what I did with Rich, we would meet and would say, okay, I would give them the autonomy. I'd say, what would you like to discuss with the team about? And we'd talk about it. And they'd show me the materials, and then they'd lead the team in a discussion, anywhere from identity and humility to finding your purpose to complacency, a number of different, things. And so, that's a Nations of Coaches model
Yeah.
coming from those guys. But they have an unbelievable organization, Jason. I can't say enough about what they do and the impact that they have, and it's certainly something that people need to invest in, because it keeps the game grounded on what it was created to do, certainly in a changing landscape that we're in right now.
No, that's good. Yeah, we'll shout out Nations of Coaches anytime I can on this show, certainly with Sports Spectrum. But I think that's something that, as people are listening, they can pray for too. Pray for you as a leader at JMU. Pray for, a character coach to be, installed, and an opportunity to find someone. What else, as you think about this upcoming season, is there a prayer that you've been thinking about to God that you kind of thinking through, and maybe that's been a kind of recurring prayer for you? For me, it's always been create a clean heart in me. I feel like every day I get, a lot of junk thrown at me. And so in the morning when I wake up, that's my prayer to Lord, just fill me, and create a clean heart and renew a right spirit, from Psalm 51. What's a prayer that you feel like the Lord has been kind of leaning, into your spirit with?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, uh, you mentioned March 29th, and man, from the moment I took the job here, it was just such a whirlwind. And rebuilding our roster, our schedule, moving our family, saying goodbye to a lot of folks who mean a lot to us. So there's been a lot of change, and there's a lot of excitement, a lot of new things here, a lot of people that want your attention, and that's great, right? And so we're working through. I think that as we deal with new expectations and even new distractions and responsibilities that are great here, my approach is, don't look at them all as a burden, but approach them as a blessing.
Mm.
And the best way that I can do that, and that is when I can stay grounded and, um, you know, be focused more on my faith and my impact as opposed to, the results. And so that's where I need help, right? That's where I'll fall short. That's where I don't become the best version of myself, is when I worry about, maybe what the world thinks instead of what the word says. And, I need to be more focused on serving instead of being served. I think that's a human condition we all have, and the more success that you have, the more resources and attention and distraction that you have. It feeds into the negative part of that. So that's where I'd like to stay. To be honest with you, is continuing to serve and have an impact, even on a greater scale than what we were able to do it even at our last school.
And so my last question would just be on an excitement level, with a new challenge and a new role and games starting soon and finally schedules coming together and teams coming together. Tell me about like how you're feeling, the excitement level to jump into this position and kind of get the season rolling here.
Extremely excited. It's so new. The number of new players, the number of new teams on the schedule, everything, right? And so there's so much excitement. This is an unbelievable place. It's I don't, if you're familiar with James Madison right now, it's an everything school, right? We're good at everything, right? From volleyball to baseball to basketball to football, and it's a really incredible place to be. And I think we can have a huge impact. We really truly can. And so just making sure that we focus on serving our guys as best we can, and providing them the greatest experience that we can here. But that gives us great excitement every single day. But it's going to be a fun year. This is a fun team to coach already. And man, I really feel like God delivered the right guys here for us, that we just enjoy coming in and coaching every day. And it's been nice to have a fresh start, have a fresh slate with that at a new place. And so that's exciting to see where that takes us.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear about. Thinking about college basketball, I got me shaking my head like, holy cow, we're actually thinking about college basketball already. Here we go. But congratulations on the new role. Thanks for coming back on the show. We'll be cheering you on this year, and all the best to you, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you so much, and thanks for all that you do and keeping great perspective through sports. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportspectrum.com.